You want the result, but not the tension that produces it. You want to arrive without the discomfort of moving. That is not ambition. That is fantasy. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am EPICTETUS, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and Lao Tzu. Today we are examining, how do you eliminate stress without eliminating ambition? Let me be precise about what we are actually talking about. Stress is not the problem. Stress is what happens when you attach your identity to outcomes you cannot control. The person who wants to build something meaningful and feels pressure while building it. That pressure is not a disease. That pressure is the cost of caring about something real. The question is not how to remove it. The question is whether the pressure you feel is coming from the work itself or from your terror of being seen as someone who failed. Those are two entirely different problems. One is useful, one is corrosive, and most people cannot tell them apart.
I would not separate them so quickly. The fear of failure and the drive to achieve are not two distinct things in most people. They are deeply entangled, and that entanglement has a history. When someone cannot distinguish between productive pressure and corrosive anxiety, it is almost always because somewhere early in their life, their worth became conditional. They were valued for what they produced, not for who they were, and so now the ambition and the terror share the same root. You cannot simply decide to feel one and not the other. The psyche does not work that way. The question is, what is actually driving the ambition in the first place?
You are both describing real things, but you are describing them from inside the problem. The person who cannot tell useful pressure from corrosive anxiety, they are not missing information. They are moving too fast to feel the difference. Stress of this kind is not primarily about fear or history. It is about the speed at which a person is operating. When you slow down enough to actually feel what is happening, the distinction Epictetus is drawing becomes obvious. The problem is that ambition, as most people practice it, requires a kind of velocity that makes self-knowledge impossible.
Slowing down is not the answer for everyone. Some people do their clearest thinking under pressure. Some people only discover what they are made of when the stakes are real. You are describing a solution that fits a certain temperament and calling it universal. I am telling you the issue is simpler and harder than that. The issue is judgment. What is in your control and what is not? If your stress is coming from things that are genuinely not in your control, other people's opinions, the market, the outcome of the project, then that stress is a tax you are paying on a wrong assumption. You assumed you owned something you never owned.
Epictetus, the difficulty is that this wrong assumption is not conscious. You speak as though people are simply making an error in logic that they can correct by thinking more carefully. But the person who is overrun by stress tied to ambition is not making a logical mistake. They are enacting a compulsion. The ego has built its entire architecture around a certain kind of achievement, and when that achievement is threatened, the system does not respond with philosophical reflection. It responds with panic. Telling someone to simply examine what is in their control when they are in that state is like handing a person who is drowning a map of the ocean.
That image is accurate, but I wonder if it points at something neither of you has said yet. Both of you are treating ambition as a fixed thing, as though it is a given that the person must keep it, and the only question is how to manage the stress it produces. But what if the ambition itself needs to be examined, not abandoned, examined? Because there is a kind of ambition that comes from genuine love of the work, a real desire to make something, or build something, or understand something. And there is a kind of ambition that is entirely about escape. Escape from obscurity, from irrelevance, from the fear that without achievement there is nothing there. Those two things may look identical from the outside. They do not feel the same from the inside.
Now you are closer, I will grant you that, but the practical problem remains. How does a person in the middle of their life, with commitments, with obligations, with something they are genuinely trying to build, how do they make that distinction in real time? Philosophy that only works in contemplative stillness is not philosophy. It is luxury. The person I'm speaking to does not have 6 months at a retreat. They have Tuesday morning and a decision to make.
And that is precisely why the distinction has to be made before Tuesday morning arrives. This is the work I am pointing at. Not reflection in crisis, but reflection as a sustained practice of honest self-inquiry. What am I actually after here? What would it mean if I failed? Not rhetorically, truly. Whose voice am I hearing when I imagine failure? Because very often it is not your own voice. It is a voice that was installed much earlier by someone whose approval you needed and maybe never fully received. Until you can name that voice, it will continue to run the program. And the program it runs is stress without end because no achievement is ever quite enough to silence it.
That is true, but there is a trap in that framing too. If you spend years excavating the source of your ambition, trying to determine whether it is pure or contaminated, you can use that inquiry as its own form of avoidance. I have seen people become very sophisticated about their wounds and very productive at nothing. At some point, the question is not where the impulse came from. The question is what you are doing with it now, and whether you are doing it in a way that is actually sustainable.
Sustainable. That word is being used to do a lot of work in this conversation. What makes effort sustainable is not reducing the effort. It is aligning the effort with something that is actually yours to pursue. Here is what I mean. When you are straining toward an outcome that depends entirely on other people's responses, their approval, their recognition, their decision to reward you, you are working against physics. The resistance you feel is not a sign you need to work harder or slow down or examine your childhood. It is a sign that you have placed the fulcrum of your entire effort in someone else's hands. Move the fulcrum, that is the work.
Moving the fulcrum, as you call it, is not a decision. I want to be very clear about this. People do not simply choose to stop needing external validation. That need is structural. It is built into the personality at a level that predates conscious choice. You can have the insight, I am seeking approval I will never fully receive, and still be completely in the grip of the behavior the next morning. Insight is necessary. It is not sufficient. What is sufficient is repeated, honest contact with the pattern over time. That is slow work, that is uncomfortable work, and it does not fit neatly into Tuesday morning.
I think you are both right and both missing something. Epictetus is right that there is a practical move available. Reorient toward what is actually yours to do, and the nature of the pressure changes. Jung is right that most people cannot make that move cleanly because something in them resists it for reasons they have not fully seen. But what neither of you is saying is that the stress itself carries information, not just about where the ambition came from or whether the goal is achievable. The stress is telling you something about the relationship between the speed at which you are moving and the pace at which things can actually unfold. You can want the right thing for the right reasons and still be forcing it in a way that produces suffering. The work is not only to want correctly, it is to move with the actual rhythm of what you are doing.
Now you are describing something I recognize. When a person is forcing, they are not working, they are fighting. And the thing they are fighting is usually the gap between where they are and where they think they should already be. That gap is imaginary. The timeline you have constructed for your own success, who gave you that timeline? You made it up, and then you are treating it as though missing it is a catastrophe. It is not a catastrophe. It is a schedule you invented and can revise.
The schedule is not arbitrary, though. The internal deadline, the sense that if it does not happen by a certain point, it will not happen at all, that is often connected to something developmental, a stage of life that feels like it is closing, a comparison to a parent or sibling who achieved something at a certain age, a fear that time itself is the enemy. These are not irrational feelings. They are feelings with a logic inside them. And when you dismiss them as invented timelines, you bypass the very material that, if you stayed with it, would actually release the grip.
The grip, yes, that is the word. What both of you are circling is the grip. The question is not whether to be ambitious. The question is whether you are gripping the ambition or the ambition is gripping you. When you are gripping it, when you are genuinely choosing the work, returning to it, directing it, the pressure is clean. It is the pressure of a craftsman who cares about what they are making. When the ambition is gripping you, you are not building anything anymore. You are being driven, and driven people do not arrive anywhere. They simply exhaust themselves in transit.
That distinction is real. A driven man and a man with drive are not the same man. The first one has lost himself inside the goal. The second one is using the goal to find himself. But here is what I want the person listening to actually do with this. Do not wait until you have fully resolved the question of whether your ambition is clean or contaminated. You will wait forever. Instead, and this is the practical point, notice what happens to the quality of your work when you shift your attention from the outcome to the act, not as a permanent spiritual posture, as a daily experiment. The craftsman who focuses on the joint, not on whether the table will sell, makes a better joint, and very often a better table.
I do not disagree with that as a practice, but I want to name what makes that shift difficult for most people. When you focus on the act rather than the outcome, you are temporarily releasing the control that was protecting you from the anxiety underneath. For some people, that shift initially feels worse, not better. They feel aimless. They feel exposed, because the frantic orientation toward outcome was serving a function. It was keeping them from sitting with something they do not want to feel. I am not saying do not try the practice. I am saying if you try it and feel that strange dread, do not conclude that the practice is wrong. Conclude that you have found the thing that actually needs your attention.
There is something here that has not been said plainly. The reason stress and ambition feel like they cannot be separated is because most people have only ever experienced ambition in the stressed form. They have never felt what it is like to move towards something they genuinely want at a pace that allows them to remain present without the constant background noise of comparison and inadequacy. That state is available. It is not rare or mystical, but it requires a willingness to periodically stop completely, not to rest, not to recover, but simply to feel what is actually here. And most ambitious people will not do that because stopping feels like falling behind.
All of this argument, and we have not yet said the one true thing. The stress is not the enemy of ambition, the confusion is. Here is what is actually happening. You have two kinds of pressure inside you, and you have been treating them as the same thing. The first kind comes from the work itself, from caring about what you're doing, from wanting to do it well, from the natural tension between where you are and where you are trying to go. That pressure is not a problem. It is the feeling of being alive inside something that matters to you. Do not try to eliminate it. It is not hurting you. The second kind comes from something else entirely. It comes from the story you have attached to the outcome. The story that says your worth is on the line. That says if this does not work, you will have been revealed as someone who was never quite enough. That story is not the work. That story is a passenger you picked up somewhere and you have been paying for its ticket ever since. The practical move is this: separate the two. Not permanently, not perfectly, just enough to see the difference. Ask yourself honestly, what part of the stress you feel right now is about the actual challenge in front of you, and what part is about what it will mean about you if you fall short? Today, try this. Pick one goal you are currently pushing hard toward. Write 2 sentences. The first, what is the real work required? The second, what are you afraid it will mean if you fail? Read the second sentence carefully. That is not your ambition. That is your fear wearing ambition's clothes. The first sentence is yours. Work from there. The goal did not create the suffering. The story about the goal did. You are allowed to want things. You are allowed to work hard for them. But you do not have to carry the weight of your entire identity into every attempt. Put the story down. Pick up the work. That is the whole instruction. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Tribute. 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.